take that serious. It was 6 lines that he gave me, so I'll read those to you real quickly. Tom Byers, a bachelor's degree from Ball State in urban planning, master's degree in Indiana University of Public Administration. Served as the county director of planning and development from 1983 to 2003. Tom, you started out in high school. And served in the county administration from 2004 to present. But seriously, without Tom Byers, this county would run as efficient as it does. He keeps us all in line and keeps us out of trouble. So the title of his speech is the 2013 County Budget Story, as Garrison Keeler might tell us. Tom Byers.
Thank you, Frank. There's been a rumor circulating around county government for the past 2 years, and after today I'll be able to tell people when I hear it again it's a lie. The next person that tells me Chuck Rodney takes a lot of days off to golf. I've never heard of a foursome that did that bad.
Not the same every year.
I want to tell you a story today that some of you are going to be able to relate to. And those of you that can't relate to it, there's going to be a lot of good information here, so make sure that you take it to heart. The first room that you enter is just you and this nurse. And she proceeds to take your temperature and your blood pressure. Then she asks you to stand on the scales. I got on the scales. She looked at me and she told me that I weighed 118 kilograms. I think she could tell by the puzzled look on my face that I had absolutely no idea what 118 kilograms were. She asked if I wanted her to convert it to pounds. I said, no, I think I'm kind of liking this better. I thought about telling her that the county budget had been weighing heavily on my mind lately, but I didn't think she would appreciate the analogy. From there, they cart you off down to the surgical waiting area. And that's where a parade of people keep coming in and asking you the same questions over and over and over again. And at one point I wanted to tell them, I said, you know, you sound like the people at a county budget hearing. You ask the same damn question over and over thinking you're going to get a different answer. I'm not going to give you a different answer. And finally that moment comes that you got to get in that wonderful gown, the one that you can't tie behind you. And fortunately, I had Mrs. MacGyver with me. Now, for those of you that have never been here before, Mrs. MacGyver is a lady that I've been married to for 40 years. And she helped me tie it. And when she knew that I was coming over to talk to you today, she said, does anybody that you are associated with at work know what my real name is? I said, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, dear. After today, at least 100 people are going to know your name is Barbara, and that you helped me. At least your definition of help. Miss MacGyver gets a little nervous when she's with me and I'm around people that I've never met before, because she never quite knows what I'm going to say to people. And we were there for a little while, and some young doctor walked in with this long name on this name tag and proceeds to tell me that he's the anesthesiologist. And I said that I can't spell that word and I can't pronounce it. Plus you have a pretty long name on your name tag. I said, how about if I just call you Dr. Sleep? Well, Mrs. MacGyver's starting to squirm in her chair a little bit. So we chat a little bit with this guy that's going to put me to sleep. And finally, I feel like he's got a sense of humor. And he says, do you have any questions, Mr. Byers? And I said, well, just one. Of the people you put to sleep last week, how many of them woke up? This guy caught on in a hurry. He looked at me and he said, well, last week I had a darn good week. I get 75%. If you ever wonder when they wheel you down to the surgical room why they don't put you to sleep before they take you in there? The first thing you see when they roll through those doors is this skinny little bed that when I looked at it, I said, there's no way in the world my body is fitting on that thing. I also look around and it seems to be like a crowd of 10, 12 people. I'm thinking, what are all they doing here? And then I look up and I see all these TV monitors. There's more monitors in there than you'll find in a sports bar. Now I'm beginning to take this surgical procedure a little more seriously, getting a little more nervous. And I realized at one point that I had not talked to this doctor guy that supposedly had done this procedure 150 times. So at least I wasn't being a test case, supposedly. And then I heard his voice. And he gave me that reassurance that we talked a little bit. And when he walked away, Dr. Sleep showed up. And Dr. Sleep started to talk to me, and I realized that the robot doctor was the only guy that didn't ask me, what kind of procedure you haven't done today? One guy has got to know. Everybody else in this place asked me. He didn't. Hopefully that magic marker on the side of my body was going to be his clue. Dr. Sleep walks up to me and says, Mr. Byers, how are you? That's the last thing I remember. Now, when you're going to go under for about 6 hours, you start thinking, man, this is going to be some great nap time, some great sleep time, and it's going to be some wonderful dreams. They send you off into La La Land, because in my dream, I'm on a faraway island. I'm the only guy. There's a bunch of women and a golf course. My dream starts out, I'm on an island. I see no women. The only thing that resembles a golf course is where the sand meets the water. Been there many times. And in the background, the Everly Brothers are singing, All I Have to Do Is Dream. And then I look over on the side, and sitting on 7 rocks by the shore are 7 middle-aged white guys. And it's the county council. They're all asking me what I can do to cut the 2013 budget. And I'm thinking, Dr. Sleep was really ticked off. This is not going to be a fun dream. As I sit there listening to the council go on and on about what kind of cuts I'm going to make, I notice off in the distance, there's a couple. And they appear to be dancing. I think, what in the world are these people doing there? And as they got closer, I realized Mrs. MacGyver is even getting even with me. All these years that she's wanted me to sit down and watch Dancing with the Stars with her. So we don't dare miss that show in my household. And as they got closer, I noticed that it was a white woman and a black man. And I thought, oh my goodness, it's Donald Driver and his partner. So now I got to have a flashback. I got to take you all the way back to 1969 when I met Mrs. MacGyver. Graduated from college and moved to north central Wisconsin. They call it God's country up there. Not in the winter, they don't. I don't. I met Mrs. MacGyver in a corner bar in north central Wisconsin. That's a lot of corners in Wisconsin. And I learned in that corner bar for the first time that the drinking age at that time was 18. She had about a 5-year head start on me. And she graduated from beer to brandy and beer chasers. And I learned in that bar 2 things. The second worst thing you can do in north central Wisconsin, in a bar, is around Swedes and Poles under the influence of alcohol, is admit to being a Bear fan. worst thing you can do is say something derogatory about the Green Bay Packers. That's a license for anybody that drives a snowmobile to run over you as you leave the bar. They will not be arrested because they will tell the officer, I'm on my way to protect my home, which is a shanty on ice where they sit in there, drink more beer, and put a line through a hole in the ice to catch fish. Boy, it don't get much more fun than that. As this dancing couple gets closer, the woman's looking good. I realize it's not Donald Driver. It's Curtis Hill. And the council is sitting on the rocks singing a song made famous by the Beatles. You never give me your money. Because Curtis never gives them the money when they ask for it. And I'm thinking, how in the world can Curtis Hill be in this dream? Well, he gets done dancing. 5 the county councilmen give him a 10. 2 of the more conservative judges only give him a 5, said he didn't cooperate too well with his partner. So there I am going through this, and I'm thinking, this just is not a good dream. So the next thing I know, I wake up in this recovery room, and you can hear that little voice talking to you, Mr. Byers. Mr. Byers, you think you hear something. Well, gradually you come to and you realize that Dr. Sleep is standing over you. Dr. Sleep says, how you doing? I said, pretty good. And he smiles at me and said, it's been a good week. He said, I think I'm going to hit 80%. They soon ship you off to a room. Now, there's a nice thing about going to a hospital that's connected with a university and where there's a school that has a big nursing program. All the nurses are young, kind, and attractive, except for Heather. I'll come back to Heather later. Ashley's my first visitor, and I asked Ashley, I said, Ashley, I never expected to have a private room. How did this happen? She said, well, Miss Byers, you're what we call a bleeder. Okay, I haven't been awake long enough to do anything, so what does that mean? Well, you lost a lot of blood, we didn't give you any. But now I really ticked somebody off. So you got to be watched for 24 hours. I look over and I see Mrs. MacGyver sitting there, and I said, like that's going to be a problem? She keeps a pretty good eye on me. So she tells me that my hemoglobin is way down, and until that hemoglobin comes back up, I'm probably going to be there for a couple days. Well, pretty soon, Allison enters the room, and I haven't been there that long, and Allison says, you got to get up. I said, I just got here. No, doctor wants you to get up. I said, well, what are we going to do then? So we're going to walk over to that door. That door didn't look to me to be any more than 30 feet away. And as I swung my feet over the side of the bed, it hurt. And I told Allison, I said, it hurts. Now there's something about the female gender that has a caring attitude about them that you won't get from any guy. Some guy would just look at me, and suck it up and let's go. But all 5'2", 110 pounds of that young lady had me convinced that she would not let anything bad happen to my 6'3", 118 kilograms. As I looked over to the side of the bed, I noticed that that lovely gown was beginning to ride just a little too far up for me, getting a little uncomfortable, and it was that time that I noticed that I had some tubes coming out of my body. Noticed that I had one coming out my side here, and I noticed I had another, well, I had another one. Now, when you've been doing nothing but laying around for 48 hours in a hospital gown and attractive sight. As I finally got to my feet, I turned to Mrs. MacGyver and I said, "You got a comb?" And bless that young lady's heart, she offered to go get me a comb. And Mrs. MacGyver, who had been quiet up to that point, says, "Young lady, you need to learn this man's personality. Look at him. Do you think he really needs to comb his hair to go for this walk over there to that doorway?" In any event, we walked. And we got to the door, and it took a while. And Ashley asked me, he said, "Would you like to proceed down the hallway a little way?" I said, "Well, you know, Ashley, I really don't want the other nurses to get jealous. How about if we just go back over there and put me in that bed?" So Ashley was kind enough to walk me back over there, and I was back in my bed. I met Heather at 2 o'clock a.m. on a Thursday morning. Every hospital has somebody that you call the vampire. And when you haven't eaten or had anything to drink for 48 hours, your veins have a tendency to be reluctant to give blood. Heather was entirely too nice, joyful. She just enjoyed her job way too much for 2 o'clock in the morning. And she bounced in there and she walked over to my bed and I said, "Hi, what you doing here?" She says, "I'm the one they call when you're reluctant to give your blood." So I asked her, I said, "What's your success rate?" She says, "I don't bleed till I get what I came after." Well, she was successful. And I thought she had left, gone out of my life, and then the next day, about late morning, she shows up again. And I said, "Heather, do you ever get time off?" So well, we work 12-hour shifts around here. So why don't you go ahead and knock off early then? I asked Heather if she'd ever seen the show Hillbilly Ham Fishing. She said, "No, I can't say as I have. Why do you ask?" I said, "Well, you ever watch that show? These people stick their hands under cloudy water, and they just keep feeling around down there until they come up with a fish. They have no idea where their hand is going." I said, "Kind of feel that way about you and that needle. You see them just keep jabbing it in there and keep going as deep until you come out with something red in that syringe." She laughed. I said, "Do you want to know what day and time that show was on?" She said, "No, Mr. Byers, I don't think that would be necessary." I also discovered that you can now order from a menu at the hospital. 24 hours a day. And if you read the descriptions of the meals, you would want to clean up, put on a tuxedo, take your favorite lady out to dinner. Or you could do what I did and order toast and strawberry, vanilla, and chocolate ice cream. I thought I was being ingenious. You mix those together, you have Neapolitan ice cream. The ice cream was good. I still haven't figured out what they did to that toast. As I was enjoying my first meal, Mrs. MacGyver tells me, she says, "You know, I don't think you're going to get out of here Friday." I said, "Why not?" "Well, your counts aren't really doing too well." Well, you tell somebody that you think that they're going to spend a weekend in a hospital with a TV that gets 6 channels, and not one of them is ESPN. I stood up, I walked. Every time one of those nurses came in that room, I made sure they knew that I could get up, that I could walk. You bet you it hurt, but I wasn't going to let on. Because I know who that doctor was going to talk to. Well, that Friday morning came around, the doctor came in. He said, "Yep." So we're going to let you go home. Miss MacGyver drove me home. Did I tell you that Miss MacGyver retired at the end of last year? It was going to be 26 days before I went back to the doctor. Miss MacGyver was going to be home all 26 of those days. After about the 8th or 9th day, I started feeling better. And I told Miss MacGyver, I said, "Why don't you go with your friend She did, believe it or not. She left on a Friday morning, and about an hour after she left, I called my girlfriend, Jill. Jill is the administrative assistant to the doctor that did the surgical procedure on me. I said, Jill, 26 days ain't gonna cut it. How about if I come down and see you next Wednesday? It was just coincidentally coincides with the expiration of the 14 days I can't drive. And she got that set up for me. When Miss MacGyver got home on Sunday and could find no evidence that I had violated any rules, I told her about my trip to Indianapolis on Wednesday. She didn't seem to be surprised that I did that and looked at me and said, I'll go with you. So we went down there and I managed to renegotiate my home detention and got to go back to work the following Monday. But on the way home from Indianapolis, Mrs. MacGyver looked at me and she said, this is the woman that I've been married to for 40 years. She says, sometimes your amount of BS just amazes me. I said, we're just negotiating the terms of my release, kind of the same way that you negotiate a budget. And she just looked at me and said, whatever. So that's an in-depth look at the 2013 county budget. And if you think I've done a bad job or have told you little, I share with you this quote from Garrison Keillor. People will forget about what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. I hope I made you feel good during your lunch hour today.